what was really quite like jolting was that it was basically a time capsule of our life 5 years ago.
Hello and welcome to episode 78 of the Sideways Life podcast. I am Al.
I am Leanne.
And today we're talking about storage. Should you store your shit or not? Is that a good title?
I think that is the perfect title. So this fits very much, listeners. You'll know this already. Our framework, why, how, where. This fits into the how. So if you're thinking about living and working abroad, what do you do with all your shit? Do you sell it? Do you store it? Do you bin it? All the answers will be revealed today from our experience and perspective.
Okay, so let's just take you back in time. I wish I could do some like taking back into...
Oh, that's sad music.
That's
isn't
sad
it?
music. From Neighbours. Imagine you watch TV and everything's kind of going a bit sepia and weird. We're going back in time to 2017.
2017.
If you know, you know. 2017, and we were living in this wonderful, beautiful house in Spain, in the Campo in Spain, which is the countryside, in an olive grove, no neighbours. Well, there was a neighbour downstairs, but she was barely there.
Yeah, swimming pool, beautiful views, gorgeous.
And we moved in there, and we were like, this is our house for a long time. We were pretty sure it's a long time. This is pre-Brexit. So if those of you listening who don't know what Brexit is, then I'm sure there's no one. But Brexit was in our opinion, ridiculous decision for the UK to leave the EU.
Yes.
And more on a personal level, it meant that we no longer had security in Spain. We didn't know what was going to happen. This was when the vote happened. We had 4 years, so we didn't really know what was going to happen.
We did not. The referendum went through in favour of the UK leaving Europe in June 2016. And that was about the time as well that we found out that it was quite likely Trump was going to become president of the US, and we're all like, what the fuck is going on? Little did we know that was the start of a massive shit show over the last 5 years now, 6 years. Ooh, take me back to 2016 now. Good times.
It was a simpler time. So one of our decisions, we had this house, we'd bought loads of things for it, we were really excited. We'd been in Spain at that point for about 4 years, maybe 5.
Yes, and we should probably say as well, this was only part furnished. So we had things like beds and wardrobes and stuff like that, but there wasn't really much else. There's no like cutlery, crockery, kitchen shit, sheets, towels, all the kind of stuff that you need to live. It was only part furnished, so we did have to acquire some things.
And acquire we did. We built out loads of stuff. We built out basically our dream house, I think, which was pretty good considering that, I wasn't 40 at that point, or just turned 40, and you were still about 19 or something. I don't know how old you are. And so we were really excited. This is going to be our dream house. And then we decided, do you know what? Let's just go and try and live in every single country in Europe before Brexit happened, which was the 31st of December 2020.
Yeah, and it was early January or mid-January, something was it? The official like dong of sodding Big Ben, the most disgraceful use of a national icon. What's it called? Monument, you know. Anyway, but actually, that wasn't quite when we decided out.
Was it not? I'm just chuckling at official dong, which reminds me of Donald Trump again.
Yeah, he's the official dong.
I tell you what, 50%, about almost 50% of our listeners come from North America. So we've probably just offended about 25% of all of our listeners. Sorry about that.
It's our view. You have yours. There's no judgment here. It's just from our perspective. No, there's no judgment. It's just our perspective. Okay. It's just our view. You don't agree, or whatever. But, I mean, you're wrong, but whatever. I'm joking. I am. But what I mean is that it wasn't actually then that we decided to do every country in Europe before Brexit. We packed up our home in Spain for various reasons. Our dream house was starting to get a bit shady. So we decided it was time to leave that house. So why not have 6 months of traveling? Earlier that year, we'd been to Thailand for the first time. Fucking loved it for our friend's wedding. So we were kind of like, let's just take 6 months. Let's do a little travel around Europe. At that point, we met friends from Slovakia and various other cool places. So let's do 3 months of Europe, run up to Christmas. 3 months in Southeast Asia. And then we'll come back to Spain, get our shit, find a new house, live happily ever after.
Narrator, that is not what happened.
No.
So basically, this is what happened is that we loved traveling so much, we thought, oh, we'll stick our stuff in storage for 6 months and then we'll just keep going. And got to the end of the 6 months, yep, keep going. And that then fast forward that to essentially last week, and that was 5 years, almost exactly 5 years.
It is. But let's go back to the beginning. If you are thinking of this as a how, is storage a good option? Let's imagine a world where we stored our stuff, came back after 6-12 months and remained to live in Spain. Is storage a good option? Yes. And I think as well, finding a really good storage company, and by good I mean just people that help you out. So bear in mind, we were in the camper about 30 miles north of Malaga. They sent us up all of the boxes, various sizes, lots of different packing tissues and bubble wraps, the little sellotapey things. They came to collect it, they took it away, and then they put it in the storage. So from a service perspective, if you are looking at storing a lot of stuff, I think working with a company like that is actually really helpful. It took a lot of the stress out of it. All we had to do is knowing that if everything can fit in these boxes, it'll fit in the storage unit and we're cool.
And in fact, it's a lesson we've taken with the way that we travel now. We've measured out, when we had our old car, we managed to get more boxes in it. We've measured out the inside of our car. And you know those I don't know if it's whether they're called in the US or Australia really useful boxes, but basically they're plastic boxes that you can sort of they've got a lid and you clip the lid shut. So we went and bought about 15 of those, maybe 10 of those. They all fitted in the car. They had a particular place, a sticker on the side where it goes. And we now know that if it fits in the boxes, then it'll fit in the car. And that's a great way of packing up if you are moving quite regularly with a car. Mm-hmm. I'd imagine that on a much more micro scale, you could do that with a backpack. I'd imagine.
I can imagine you could, yeah.
Anyway.
And in terms of affordability, the storage unit we found was fairly affordable. It was €300 for 6 months, so about £270. I'm guessing maybe, I have no idea in dollars, maybe around.
So I think it's 1-to-1 at the moment of euro to dollar.
Shut up.
I think it is. Anyway.
Well, I would imagine we're going to get a lot more people from the States in Europe then. Flipping out.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But anyway, by the time you're listening to this could be 2 years in the future, so it might not be.
It could. But what a great opportunity if you are from the States to travel around Europe with that conversion rate.
Exactly.
That's
and
amazing.
If you are 2 years in the future, will you just drop us an email and tell us if Ryan Reynolds is the actual president of the United States? Because I think that would be a cool move.
I think he's Canadian.
Oh, is he?
I don't think you're allowed.
Oh, you're not. Racists, aren't they?
That might be the same in most places.
Yeah, it probably is. Anyway, so where are we up to? We've rambled a lot. I'm sorry. Let me just tell you what our last 4 or 5 days has been like. So you heard about the beginning of the storage, the middle of the storage, during the storage era.
Didn't think about it at all.
Well, why would
that was
you?
The best bit.
Yeah, because you just basically shell out €300 every 6 months, and then you don't have to think about it ever again. However, we realised we'd spent, what was it? So it's €600 times 5 years. That's €3,000 storing our stuff. We're back in Malaga in Spain for the first time, long term, in about 5 years. And we thought we have to empty our storage unit. And do you know what's going to be really exciting? There's going to be so many cool things in it. Narrator again. There were not cool things in it.
Not entirely true.
If you follow us on Instagram, go and have a look, because you'll see that Leanne did a kind of live thing of us unloading all these boxes, and the worst thing was that it was a hot day and the sun was beating down, and we just unloaded the boxes. And almost every box we opened, we went, why the hell did we keep this? Mm-hmm. So, shall we do the spoiler and say what we've ended up with from 30 boxes? Or do we do that at the end?
Yeah, no, let's do it.
So 30 boxes, 50 centimetres by 50 centimetres by 50 centimetres, about 30 of those, plus a load of furniture, including stools, chairs, desks, tables. We are now left with one box, 50 by 50 by 50. Mm-hmm. That's it, out of the whole lot.
And it's not even stuff that we've kept. It's things like photographs and mementos and memories, and it's all sentimental stuff, really. It's not stuff.
We're going to let you into a bit of a secret on our on how cheesy we are as a couple. Leah, do you want to tell them about the birthday presents?
Yeah. I can't even remember when we started it, but it was fairly early on. It was certainly before we were married. So we're looking at least 11, 12 years that we've been doing this. But my birthday is in November. Ours birthday is in May. So they're a nice 6 months apart. And I can't remember who started it. I think it might have been you.
I can't remember.
But basically, every birthday we'd get each other a mug. They would have photographs on, or a cup.
Or if anyone doesn't know your northern accent, it'd be a mug.
A mug. A coffee cup.
Teacup. Coffee cup. You're right. Coffee cup. Yeah.
A coffee cup with pictures on, or sayings on, or funny things that we'd experienced in that 6 months. And we'd buy each other that for our birthdays. So for the last 12 years, we have collected 24 mugs that document what that 6 months in between our birthdays was like. And we unpacked our storage unit, and there they were. And they were really cute.
They were things like we had a dog, we had a puppy. So there's pictures of our puppy. Then we had things like something Leanne says, which is quite weird. She says cheeses, the word cheeses, as in multiple of cheese in a weird way. Say it again, Leanne.
Cheeses.
Now say fishes.
Fishes.
I think it's plural of anything like that Leanne likes. But so there was things like cheeses. What did you say? Cheeses. Cheeses. And there's a picture of a cheese. It sounds stupid. I know you're going, what the hell am I listening to this drivel for? The fact is, it's very sentimental. It was something which it was a tradition. It was. And we even did it when we were stuck in Slovenia and Czechia and all those. But anyway, So we went through them today, and unfortunately we threw them all out.
Yes, we did.
And so that comes to the second part, I suppose, is the question is, do you store or do you not? And shall we see if we can answer that? I mean, you said yes. If you're going to be out away for 6 months, of course you're going to store. Of course.
I think the first thing is to really, if you are thinking about storing stuff, really taking a hard look in the mirror and asking yourself, am I a hoarder? Mm-hmm. Because if you're a hoarder, you shouldn't store.
I feel like there's some sort of snappy phrase like hoarders don't become storers or something like that.
Nice. But I think bearing in mind, we'd already packed up our life in the UK and moved abroad. We'd already got rid of loads of stuff. Mm-hmm. We've traveled full time for 5 years. We have clear outs usually every 6 months of stuff that we've got. We don't really hoard.
No. We just keep things that are either sentimental or meaningful, or it seems wasteful to throw away if we can't charity shop it at some point or sell it. I would not class us as hoarders at all. I think we're pretty brutal actually. But I'm looking through that storage unit stuff and thinking, like you said, why did I keep this? It's bordering on a bit hoardy. Mm-hmm. So I think if you are thinking about storage, one, do you have the discipline to go through all your stuff and really, really, truly think, is future Beth or Jamie gonna need this? If you can do that, or if you are really nervous about changing your life and moving abroad and you think there's a fair chance you will come back, then yes, I think storage would be an option, and as well assuming that it's affordable. Yeah, so I think lesson number one is, do you really need it? Yes. And there is stuff like Leanne found an album that her mum put together, 20 years ago? It's my 21st birthday, so right. More than that. Yeah. So, how old am I? No, not yet. Woohoo! Slightly less. But this is bordering on 20 years old, this album. And it must have taken your mum hours and hours. She's basically, we're talking, you were 21 in 2011? No, 2001, whatever it was. 2005. Right. So this is before like the iPhone had just come out. So she was literally going to the chemist, get your or the pharmacy, get your photos developed, stick them in a book, etc. That's irreplaceable. Mm-hmm. So even though it's big and bulky, I think that needs to stay. Yes. However, the majority of stuff, like we took picture frames out and we were like, why have we kept this? And then I started taking the photos out thinking, why am I doing this? I've got these photos electronically somewhere, so it just doesn't make any sense. So I suppose question number one is, should you store it? Do you really need it? Is it irreplaceable? Question number two, I think, is that how much does it cost to replace it? I mean, we look at the £3,000. If we just put €50 aside every single month to replace things as and when we needed it, or as a fund for when we found our dream house, we wouldn't have spent all that to replace what we've just thrown away. Yeah, and it depends what's in your house, all of our kind of our kitchenware, plates, bowls, all that kind of shit, it was just IKEA. Mm-hmm. Our bedding was kind of just,
cost-effective stuff. It wasn't like expensive silk sheets or anything. So yeah, unless it's a family heirloom or you've invested a lot of money in your household belongings, then if you're talking IKEA, you're going to be able to buy that shit's there for 18 months, 2 years, you're going to be able to buy it back. But also the reality is that even if you have invested more money in your household things, then you have to ask yourself, is it just that you're reluctant to part with it because you've invested money in it, or because it's sentimental? If it's sentimental, absolutely, you find somewhere to keep that stuff. But, try and be selective because, But if it's just you want to keep it because you've invested some money in it, sell it. Put that into your fund for either future house or your travels or whatever else that is actually going to make a difference to your life now, because that stuff in storage is just in storage, isn't it? If it's not sentimental and it's not just IKEA shit, let somebody else enjoy it and get pleasure from it.
Absolutely. And just when I say throw away, we're actually probably about 95% of it we've either sold or we've given away. So it's not like it's just gone straight in the bin. No. We are relatively cognizant of environmental issues. So there's that. So you've got the question of is it sentimental? You got the question of can I replace it? And also on this can I replace it thing. What's interesting is we found in almost every house we go to, whether it's a long-term or, well, it's different if it's a long-term, but if it's a long-term or short-term, there's usually about 30 to 70 euros worth of stuff we need to buy. Mm-hmm. So if you assume that every month you're going to spend 30 euros on something you need for a house, then why not put 30 euros a month aside? And then when you do move into your house, you've got yourself whatever 12 times 30 euros is, 12, 24, you've got £360 to spend on your new house. So, I mean, I think you're looking at me that kind of strangely. Yeah, you agree. So can you replace it? Is it sentimental? Can you set aside money to replace these things? The fourth lesson I think we learned was around the wine, wasn't it?
Oh,
heartbreaking. I'm not sure Leanne can talk about this yet.
Oh, if you do follow us on Instagram, you would have seen how excited we were when we found the Posh Wines box. That was how we labelled it, Posh Wines. So we left in the September 2017. Al turned 40 in the May, and as one of his birthday presents, we did a beautiful tour of the Ribera del Duero region in northern Spain. We went to lots of different bodegas, lots of different wineries, bought some wines, and we're only going to be away for 6 months. So we're like, well, we won't rush ourselves to drink them, because we're probably talking about, I don't know, 200-300 euros of wine? Easily.
And there was one box of 3 wines in it, and I think we spent 120 euros on those 3 wines alone.
Mm-hmm. So not loads of money. We're not talking like we spent like $3,000 on a bottle of wine. But in our little world, that's quite expensive. So we're like, yeah, we'll leave them in storage. We'll come back to them. It'll be fine. Narrator, it was not fine. And we opened a couple of them on Saturday because we had friends coming around. So we're like, oh, well, we'll see if they're drinkable. We'll whack them out. They were just vinegar. They were ruined. Absolutely ruined. So anything like that, anything perishable, don't bother storing it. Clothes, don't bother storing it unless you're going to store it for 30 years and they come back round in fashion. Hello, 2001, that seems to be back at the minute.
Nirvana t-shirt.
I know, but unless you're going to keep it for that long, then there's no point. There's fuck all point.
There really is. I mean, so if you've got a perishable, in terms of food, you wouldn't keep food in storage, but in terms of wine, don't do it. We kept some whiskies there. I mean, I got for my 40th a very expensive Japanese whiskey. Easily, I think it's about 150 quid for that whiskey. And that seems to have survived okay.
Yes, yeah.
But we're lucky with that. But I'm not saying drink that, down it with Coke or whatever. But there's other things you can do. I mean, why not give it away, to someone who really likes whiskey?
Yes.
Go on. You look really confused.
I think I'm about to really upset you, but I don't know whether to do it on the podcast or wait until later.
Let's do it in public. She's pointing at the whiskey behind us. Yeah.
Is that the one you said before? I got that for my birthday and I really want to...
Yeah.
There's no whiskey in it.
Oh no, what's in it?
Just coins, like change.
Oh no.
When you said that, I was like, where did that come from? But I was like, okay.
Right. So, just to give you the picture, this is happening live well, it's recorded, but it's happening whilst we're doing the podcast. I got this lovely there's like you know how Scottish whiskies come in a case and it's got the bottle inside. Well, I've got this lovely case of Tom and Tool whiskey. Tool sounds funny. Whiskey that I've been carrying around, thinking I'm going to. Do you know what? That feels full to me. I'm going to open that and I'm going to drink that maybe. And Leanne's just pointed out there's no whiskey in it. There's just spare coins from. Oh, I'm a bit disappointed now.
I'm so sorry, Jenny. I didn't. When you said before, I was like, where did you find that? But that's why I brought it back, so that we can take it to one of those change things, or just like, I don't know, find somebody that give it to you. But it's probably only about €6 in there in like 1 cent coins.
Okay, so just
another lesson to be learned.
Another lesson to be learned. This is we're throwing storage lessons at you, all the time here. So let's just right. We're 20 minutes in, so I feel like we've had a little bit of a therapy session. This
is very cathartic actually, because it's excuse me. And I think just before you recap, one of the hardest things we found about emptying our storage unit wasn't the money that we'd spent storing stuff we don't want anymore. It wasn't the time it's been there. It wasn't the ball ache of having to go down and empty it. That's just logistics, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But what was really quite, I don't know what the right word is, like jolting, was that it was basically a time capsule of our life 5 years ago. And I think if you're going to store stuff, whether you're moving abroad for a set period of time or whether you're like us, it just rolls and rolls and then you go back. It's almost like somebody's saying to you with all your belongings from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this is a life you could have had.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about this so much before when we talk about our why and our framework. Like, you have to really consider what you're giving up, what you're walking away from. And the thing with the storage is that it's like that physical representation of what you walked away from. And even though we've had an ace 5 years and we wouldn't make any decisions differently, not even knowing what we know now, but it was really quite upsetting, actually.
It was, and we've kind of bickered this week a little bit. I don't know whether you do the same with your partner.
No, we haven't.
Lols.
You looked at me then as if like you've been serious.
I don't know, because I've got in trouble this week more often than I think I've got more trouble more in the last 7 days than I have in the last 7 months. Don't seem to have done anything right. And I think
poor Al.
I know, poor me.
Should we set you up a GoFundMe page so you can leave me?
You could start off with the coins in that Tom and Tool thing. You can give me that. But I think we've both realised, particularly today, unpacking the last of it in the Malaga sun, 32 degrees it is today, sitting there with the sun pouring down on our heads, emptying all this stuff, the last of our stuff. We just realised that actually we're just really sad. And it's okay to be sad, because as Leanne said, it's the cost. The cost of living this life is that you can't carry around all the cups that you ever got for your birthday. You have to take your wedding photos out of the frame and put them into a book or something to keep them. Talking of books, I've collected books since I was about 20. I'm now 45, so I've got 25 years worth of books. And we got rid of maybe 50% when we left the UK. Mm-hmm. But there was still about another 200 or 300 books in that storage unit. And I've pared that down to about 8. And it was heartbreaking. And Leanne's done the same, because you like cookbooks. You've got loads of great cookbooks.
So many great cookbooks and psychology books as well. Mm-hmm. That it's just, it's like, well, I can't take them all with me. So then you're forced to choose between your favourites. We don't have kids, but I'd imagine it'd be something similar. It's really hard, and it's just always that. I think the most difficult thing about kind of living and working abroad is that or particularly if you're nomadic, actually, maybe more so if you're nomadic than if you're an expat, is that there is always this sense of lacking belonging or lacking kind of a base or roots or some stability. And again, I think it's when you see this stuff, it's almost like, well, if I wasn't doing this, I could have all my stuff around me. I could have my massive bookshelf with all the books on. I'll never pick them up and read them, but I'd have them. And then that's when you kind of jolt back the other way and go, well, I wouldn't read them. It's just stuff. It's just ego having a bookshelf full of books. I've got my Kindle full of books, but no one can see them. So how will they know I'm clever? But it's, it's such a mix of emotions and such a whiplash of a scenario. I think it's so hard, and I think we've worked really hard to stay in the moment, stay in the present, make decisions that are right for us at the right time. But going back, and I know this is kind of turned into something a bit more emotional than what you probably expected, should I store my shit or not? But this is the reality of it. If it happens long term, these are the feelings it's gonna throw up, and that's what's hard to deal with, not the $6,000 storage bill.
I think that's it. And if we knew what we were going to be doing, that we're settling down in 2 years or something, then it might be different. We might have said, yes, we'll pay the extra 600, 800, whatever euros it is to keep it for another 2 years. But the fact is that neither of us can really see this lifestyle changing much. I mean, we were talking before, in a period of 72 hours, we went from, shall we stay in Spain forever, to why don't we go and do 3 months out of Schengen, 3 months in Schengen, to now potentially getting a Spanish visa and staying in Spain for 6 months and somewhere else for 6 months. And so this is just a discussion in the last 72 hours. So nothing in the future is guaranteed, certainly for us. And I'd imagine if you're a long-term traveller, you don't know where you're going to be probably in 6 months, let alone in 6 years. So I think all of that I'm trying to say is that if you are at the point where you're thinking of storing stuff, and you're thinking, yes, what do I do with all my lovely stuff I've collected over the last 50 years? Just ask yourself, one, is it replaceable? If it's totally replaceable, yes, store it. 2, is it sentimental? And 3, could I just put a little bit of money aside each month so that when I do settle, I can go and rebuy all the things that I think I need to store?
Agreed.
So, there you go. I think that kind of covers. I know it's been almost like a therapy session with you guys, and
it has. Thank you for listening. But I think the main thing to ask oneself if you're going to store is, 1, realistically, can I put a time frame to this? If you can't, storage probably ain't a good idea. 2, how much of all this stuff is actually, as Al said, irreplaceable or sentimental? In which case, yes, you need to figure out a way to keep that in your life. And 3, I guess it's just that emotional side of it. Are you really wanting to make a time capsule of your life right now, go through whatever adventures you're going to go through in the next 5-10 years, and come back to what you could have won?
That's so, like, Confucius kind of like. Is there a Confuciusness? Yeah, I think that's really, really good. So, if you are thinking of doing something like this, then I'd be intrigued. We'd be intrigued. Just send us an email, podcast at, no, it's not. It's a sidewayslife@gmail.com. Got confused with that other podcast there. So sidewayslife@gmail.com, or go onto Instagram, search for a Sideways Life. In fact, you know what? I've discovered, I think that we dominate Google. So you can just go into Google and type a Sideways Life in, and a Sideways Life, and we're everything. So you can find us there.
We are everything.
We are everything. I feel sorry. There was a company that did. I think they sold sports gear for people who did snowboarding, and they were called SidewaysLife.com. And now they're on like page 11 because we've just ruined their business.
Oh, well. Should have started a podcast, shouldn't we?
They should have done. So,
speaking of podcasts, as Al mentioned there, if you are interested in the business side of world, if you want to hear about our other podcast, which is all about people and culture, it's called Truth, Lies and Workplace Culture. If you want to hear a different side of us, and it is very different, we're a little bit more professional, but if you're interested, that's your bag, go and check it out. It's now live as of today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and probably your other platforms of choice. So yeah, the Truth, Lies and Workplace Culture podcast. There's 5 episodes. Maybe you like it.
Just don't Google it, because we're not even on page 1 yet. But I'll sort that out.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So next week we have an amazing guest. You will love her for so many reasons. She's so down to earth. Her name's Jessica. She runs something called Decipher Spain, which is a website and a company all about how to live in Spain and to get around the bureaucracy. Talking of which, I found our license for a dangerous dog, which we mentioned, I think, on the podcast recently, which took us about 4 years to get, and the dog had died before we managed to get the license.
Dead now, of course.
Anyway, so, yep, look out for that. It's coming up next time. I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you are thinking of living and working in Spain on a longer than a 90-day tourist visa, which technically you can't work on, then tune in. You will hear Jessica talk all about your options. And I apologise in advance. My sound is awful on it, so you're going to have a weird chopped up version where I'll be asking the questions, then we'll be cutting to her actually replying to them on Zoom. But that's next week. So is there anything else to say?
I don't think so. Thanks again for listening and
Thank you.
helping therapize us.
And also, do you know what? We mentioned last week Beth and Shelley. They sent us an email, and now we communicate via video now. We send each
we're
other
going to meet
videos.
for drinks, hopefully, depending where we end up.
So we're not quite as posh and fancy and famous as you might think.
No one thinks I'm posh or fancy, for one.
That's true. That's true. So we'll see you next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.